Movie Review Talk. Damien Chazelle and Ryan Gosling shoot for the moon in First Man. And Steve Carell and Timothée Chalamet in the powerful drama Beautiful Boy.
I know a Beautiful Boy is. Are we supposed to talk? I don't know. Do we talk?
Yeah. We're talking. It's okay. We're talking. Hey there, movie fans. Look at this. I'm loving it. Off the cuff here. Welcome to Collider Video's Movie Review Talk. Every week we review the new movies in theaters. We pick something that's streaming that you should check out. And we pick a Blu-ray. This one we have this week is very, very special. And here's the beauty of all this. It is spoiler-free. You can watch to your heart's content. And this is very, very important. Everyone watching, everyone listening on Podcast One, everyone watching on Collider Video YouTube, share this video, share this podcast, share, share, share. Yes, I am begging, please share and tell everyone about Collider Video's Movie Review Talk, hashtag MovieMans, and please, please spread the word about Movie Review Talk. Every week I am joined by two guest critics. This week joining me, she is the first returning critic panelist since Review Talk stared back in the beginning of June.
I'm not worthy of this honor.
You are.
I truly am not.
From Fandango. You are absolutely worthy. Like you are the first return guest. Every week I'm like, who can I get that I've never had before? Who can I get that I've never had before? And you were the first guest. So
probably because I asked. I asked to come back. We conspired, and then we sort of told you.
Yeah, you did, didn't you?
And the fact that this is First Man and First Mans is a huge honor.
Huge, Nikki Novak. Awesome.
You might have liked this movie. I have a feeling.
I might have, and we're going to get into that in a bit. And there he is, my good friend, John Rocha.
Yay!
Yes, he is my good friend despite our past together, but it has always been with deep, deep friendship, man
Absolutely.
that I truly admire and respect, and he is a very, very good friend of mine.
Thank you,
Collider's John Rocha. Welcome. Very excited to have you on.
I'm excited to talk about all these movies and to be on the show with you and Nikki. This is going to be a lot of fun. You know, we're friends off camera, so it's going to be fun to talk about all these movies on camera.
We are?
Thank you for having me on.
We are?
That's right.
Yes, it is. All right, well, let's get right to it. Our first movie is Beautiful Boy, written and directed by Felix Van Groeningen, starring Steve Carell, Timothée Chalamet, Maura Tierney, and Amy Ryan. This is based on a pair. This is two best-selling memoirs by David Sheff and his addicted son, Nick Sheff, who keeps relapsing with heartbreaking results. John, Steve Rocha, let's do it.
I absolutely love this movie. Really broke my heart in so many places. And just, you know, every once in a while, these movies kind of creep through the blockbuster stuff and the big noted Oscar-winning fare, and this slides right in here and really gets you where it hurts and gets you where you feel things. And you love that a director gets a shot to create this kind of work. Steve Carell is incredible in this. You don't normally think for a movie like this, you don't normally think Steve Carell to anchor this thing. He does an incredible job here. And Timothée Chalamet, every movie I see him in, I'm deeper and deeper in like with this guy as an actor, and seeing their journey and their progress. And there are moments where I wanted to walk out of the theater from frustration, from anger, from pain, from hurt. Like, get it together, get it together. These people love you. Get it together.
Addiction.
And you understand addiction even at a bone deep level. This reminds me of that film Moonlight Mile where he was dealing with the death of his girlfriend and all that progress dealing with the family, and Dustin Hoffman. I think it's Susan Sarandon played the mother, and Ellen Pompeo was in this as well, and he's processing the death of someone that he loved, and they show you the progress. And this film is the same thing, kind of shows you the process of addiction. And I love the fact that it doesn't pull any punches, and it shows you the ugliness of it, and it made me want to go out and buy these books immediately to read even more about this man and this son's journey.
All right, Nikki, let's hear it.
I loved it too, and I loved it. And here's what I'm hearing about this movie. I'm hearing a lot of people say, I love the performances, I didn't love the film.
Now, I've been hearing that too, but why do you think you're hearing that? Like,
well, the one issue I had with it was that it jumps all over the map in terms of time frame and when it was. And sometimes I found it a little bit confusing when it was modern day. When they showed him as a kid, you could really follow, okay, they're jumping back in time. But there was sometimes I was a little confused. It took me a little second to figure out, okay, where are they in the story here? But Timothée Chalamet is one of those, you know, people are saying it's even better than Call Me By Your Name. It's just a different performance. But I think he is really, he's going to be the next Leo.
Oh, okay. Ooh,
I
wow,
really
that's
do.
strong. That's Leonardo DiCaprio, ladies and gentlemen.
No,
What a
I
very good
think he has
comparison.
that raw talent, and he has that naturalism. Is that a word? But natural. He's so natural on camera that his nuances and his behavior never feel like acting.
See, now what you just said about how the movie jumps back and forth in time, it's nonlinear. See, that's one of the things I liked about the film. There was another film at Toronto called Ben is Back with Julia Roberts and Lucas Hedges that deals with a similar thing about a child sort of relapsing with addiction. That movie's it's a very, very good movie. Julia and Lucas Hedges are fantastic in the film. But, you know, it's a straightforward arc of a narrative. You know, 98% of the movies are like that. And I really admired the way the director, Felix Van Groeningen, really went back and forth, that he shows the love in this little kid, you know. It shows Steve Carell with the young, very young Nick, and you're like, this kid is going to grow up to be an addict who cannot get his act together. But why can't he get his act together? Why?
Right.
Because addiction is real, it is tragic, it is a disease, and you have to keep failing until you learn and get better. And that's one of the key points of this movie. The other thing, I gotta say, Steve Carell, just over the years, started with Little Miss Sunshine in 2006, but then over the years of movies like Foxcatcher, The Big Short, this, and he's in Vice with Christian Bale, which looks amazing.
Can't wait to see that movie.
He's great as a comedic actor. He's great as a dramatic actor. He's an Oscar nominee because of Foxcatcher. I feel like he should be an Oscar nominee for this as well. Absolutely. Timothée Chalamet in 2017. Call Me By Your Name, Hostels, and Lady Bird. What a breakthrough year. 3 standout roles in 3 standout movies. And I feel like he tops all 3 of those movies, including Call Me By Your Name, with his performance in this film. It's a heartbreaking movie, and I love that, you know, it doesn't end with a little bow, right?
I absolutely love that. Yeah, it doesn't make you feel good necessarily at the end. It gives you a little bit of hope, but it doesn't make you feel good. And I love that movie because too rarely do we get those 70s endings in movies anymore, where they leave it either open-ended or they don't leave you feeling 100% good. That's what makes it real life. And the back and forth I love too, because that's how, when we're going through a traumatic experience in a relationship, whether it's father and son, mother and daughter, or boyfriend, girlfriend, husband and wife, you're sitting there and you are just thinking about times when it was good, times when it was great, those memories of him when he's a little kid in the surf, all that stuff. That worked for me. It might not have worked for you, Nikki, but I get that. But for me, it really did, because that's when you have those moments of reflection, like, why can't we go back to those places? Why are we stuck in this place? It made it even more real for me.
What I loved about it is that it was real in the sense that I dated an addict for a couple of years, and I went through it, and the lying is number one. They will lie at all costs.
Oh, yeah.
And what I liked about Timothée's performance is that, you know, a lot of these days, actors really try to be the hero in a movie, and they try to show there was a selfishness to his performance that I kind of liked.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because in that moment, even though it is a disease, they are making choices that are hurting their family, and Steve Carell gets to a point, there's one point in the movie where he has to make a tough choice. And that is there's so much reality in that, and you felt how difficult that was for him in that moment. Yeah, where he had to be selfish for a moment. So I like that they went there with that, and they didn't try to make his character so redeemable. I thought that was a really, it's really what happens.
Yeah. Right, he had to take a stand, and it was a very, very difficult stand, and that's sort of an epiphany in the movie where it's like, it's this bad. And I saw a comment posted on social media about Beautiful Boy, where the comment was basically, oh, it's a bunch of privileged white people shouting at each other. And that comment made me so angry. And I started to reply to that comment with a long rant, but I didn't want to embarrass the person because this person is actually a friend of mine. But that person completely missed the point of this film. If that's all he got out of it was, it's just a bunch of privileged white people yelling at each other. The point is that addiction strikes anyone. You don't have to be a minority. You don't have to be, from a different gender. I mean, it strikes anybody. And I mean, they're I guess, well off, but they still come, I mean, the kid still comes from a broken home. Steve Carell's married to Maura Tierney. His mother is Amy Ryan. That marriage didn't even work. So, but just the way he kept relapsing, and the way he just, Timothée Chalamet, the way he kept falling back into it, seduced by even the littlest thing, like drugs in a medicine cabinet, and taking it just because he could, and then thinking, should I have just done that? I think this is a terrific film. I think it's a powerful film, but it's not preachy. It's not manipulative.
Not
it doesn't
at all.
beat you over the head. You know, I hate when a movie pushes my buttons, and this movie did not. It earns all of your emotions. And Beautiful Boy is a beautiful movie. What's your letter grade on this?
I would say B+ on this one.
B+,
Absolutely.
okay. Nikki?
I give it a B+ too, and it's one of those movies. I watched it. I'm glad I watched it. I won't watch it again for a long time.
I agree. Thoroughly agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, I saw
saw
it twice. I saw it at I saw it in Toronto, and then I saw it again just recently, and you were there.
Yes, I was.
But I do love this movie, and I think that it's a movie that, you know, I'm not going to be preachy and say, okay, you got to see this movie, it's important. It's just a really, really, really good movie with great performances, and it's not your typical addiction drama because it is directed in a different way. I'm giving it, you know, like an A. I really did love this movie. Okay.
Oh no.
Moving on
Are we
to a
doing the big
movie
one?
that I was looking forward to for a lot of reasons, and we're going to talk about all that right now. The movie is First Man. The movie is First Man. Again, the movie is First Man. And it is directed by Oscar-winning director Damien Chazelle. It stars Ryan Gosling and Claire Foy. It is the story of Neil Armstrong and his 8 years at NASA, leading up to the historic moon landing of Apollo 11 in July of 1969. All right, Nikki.
Wow. You're giving me the floor on this one first. That's huge shoes to fill. Wow.
Where to begin?
Loved this movie.
Okay, why?
Loved this movie. Damien Chazelle is just such an exciting director, isn't he? I mean, to go from La La Land to doing this.
Yep.
I mean, I'm starting to, and this is what I think about after watching this. I'm trying to find the similarities in the characters and the common thread, and what's Damien Chazelle's common thread? And I will get to that, but what I love about that is that it makes me think of that he doesn't have this style that is very predictable, that you're like, that's a Damien Chazelle movie. This movie, the payoff, I mean, there's so much leading up to the landing on the moon, but the payoff, the way it was shot.
Oh, yeah.
And the emotion behind it. And again, if we're talking about criticisms I've heard about this movie, is that his performance isn't big enough. Ryan's performance is too understated. It's too long. It's boring. These are all the things I loved about it. I think it could have been a 3-hour movie.
I would have been down for that.
I would have been down for a 3-hour movie. It was 2 hours and 20 minutes, something like that. And I feel like they had to do little snapshots of different parts of the film, almost to condense the story. It's such a big story. But what I loved about it was that Ryan was given the opportunity, we were given the opportunity to see Neil's personal story. It wasn't a sensationalized Hollywood, let's tell the story from an outside perspective. Because you see these big moments in history and you're thinking, what did it feel like for that person? And people ask people in interviews in big moments, sporting events, whatever they are, what did it feel like? And you can never capture it. And that's what this movie captures. What this man was going through, what he was thinking, what he might have been thinking. But the payoff, when they land on the moon visually, and I'm just gonna say that shot with the boot, when you see it from what his eyes would have seen, the boot stepping down, which is not a spoiler. But
Yeah,
it's
sure.
But it is spectacular.
We did land on the moon.
We did land on the
Or
moon.
did we?
Stanley Kubrick did not film this in a soundstage, although we are going to talk about
We
Stanley
are going to
Kubrick
talk
in a
about
bit.
that.
All right, John.
Yeah, listen, I was looking forward to this. Anyone who watches Collider content know this was like one of the #1 films I was looking forward to this fall, and it did not disappoint in any way, shape, or form. I absolutely enjoyed the movie, really enjoyed the performances. This is Neil Armstrong. You know, the film got a little bit of flack. Oh, we don't see the American flag, this or that. But I actually think, and let me push back on that because some people were trying to defend that, I think Chazelle was trying to make a very quietly subversive film about the space program. You know, we've seen so many great films about the space program, so many great TV series, that HBO series from Earth to the Moon, fantastic stuff that show you the rah-rah America epic nature of it all. But there's a reality underneath and the cost of it. And you can't show the cost with just a cutaway to the wife and frustration like they do on those other shows.
Yeah.
You have to show more, and I think you see the cost here between this relationship between Neil Armstrong and his wife Janet. It's perfectly captured in these very uncomfortable moments, almost As Uncomfortable as Beautiful Boy is at times in their relationship, because you can tell there's a real distance between them, because Neil wasn't necessarily the warmest guy. And so Janet even says that, I married him because he seemed like he knew where he was going and what he was going to do. And how many times do you hear people get into relationships, especially at that time, get into marriages and they stay there because they thought, well, this person was solid. You don't really get divorced at that time. He's part of NASA. He's famous. How can I do that? So you see a window into all that. And then you see a window into the program, into the space program, and it's fantastic. And Buzz Aldrin is a jerk. And it's great to see that kind of side of him as well. But overall, the visuals of this film, Chazelle is leveling up here as a filmmaker, and it's fantastic. And I say subversive because you hear the protests, he points those out, you hear the Vietnam stuff on the TV, and yeah, you don't really see the American flag that prominently featured, because this is about something else, because Neil said one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. It means everyone.
It's actually, you know, there's some date. Did he say one small step for man?
Oh, right.
Or
for
one small step
man.
for a man?
For a man.
Okay, well, you see the movie and you'll see what Damien Chazelle and screenwriter Josh Singer thinks. So first of all, I agree with both of you, and then some. And then some is this. First of all, with regards to David Chazelle's evolution as a filmmaker, his fourth film, I mean, to go from La La Land to First Man, completely different movies. And if there's a through line in his movies, it's this. He knows how to end his movies very, very strong and unexpected. And the ending of this movie, after almost two hours and 20 minutes of playing someone who's understated and reserved and private, like you said, not the warm and fuzzy type.
Right.
There is an unexpected emotional punch that really hits you in the heart and in the gut, and I did not see that coming. And it was very, very, very effective, and it makes you realize how vested and how committed you were to watching this movie. Why was that commitment there? Well, like you said, John, this sort of story has been told before, from the Earth to the Moon, which is brilliant, Apollo 13, which is also brilliant, The Right Stuff, one of my favorite movies of all time. But all of those projects and all the documentaries, numerous, countless documentaries I've seen about the space shots and the space program in the 60s, there is a sort of rah-rah, gung-ho, idealistic tone to them. But with First Man, what Josh Singer, screenwriter, and Damien Chazelle have done, they have stripped the polish. They have stripped away the gloss off the space program. They have basically, in effect, deconstructed the Apollo program, because the movie is so visceral. And I mean really, really visceral. That was their plan. That was their intent. To that extent, mission accomplished. You don't just see the space program in this movie. You feel it.
Yeah.
You really feel it. And not really a spoiler here, but when they show the mission, Neil Armstrong's mission of Gemini 8, you are in the cockpit with them the whole time. You don't see it lift off. You're in the cockpit with them the whole time. You feel it. This is a completely different, unique film. And like I was like shell-shocked after it was over, because you feel just how visceral it is. You feel, here's the other thing, you feel how dangerous it is. You feel how dangerous the space race was. Like, you had deaths. A couple of them died not even going into space. A couple of them died at plane crashes. Then there's the Apollo 1 fire, which was a test. But you're like, it's almost like lucky that more people didn't die. I mean, it was a very, very ambitious thing to go from Alan Shepard's 15-minute space flight in '61 to landing on the moon just 8 years later. What evolution for NASA and for the human race especially. But, you know, the relationship between Armstrong and his wife and Claire Foy is terrific. You know, she's more than just a supportive wife, which, you know, Kathleen Quinlan played in Apollo 13.
She's one of the most exciting actresses to watch.
Really, Emmy winner.
So
but
great,
I think this is a terrific movie, and I think it's, you know, as of now, next to A Quiet Place, another movie I loved because it was so different, First Man is my favorite movie of 2018 so far.
It's my second or third.
It's so
second
good.
Second or third. How about
it's
you?
so good. And by the way, the moon landing sequences, when they're walking on the moon, okay, that was shot with IMAX cameras. So you have to see this movie in IMAX. It is a must-see to see this movie in IMAX. I mean, I know it's a foregone conclusion here, but what's your letter grade, Nikki?
I'm going between an A and an A+.
Okay. All right. Okay. Good.
Let's throw an A+ in there. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's throw the plus in there, Nikki. All right, Johnny.
I have to say an A. I think there's just a little bit of coldness on the fringes here that didn't let me fully 100% gravitate to the emotional or connect to the emotional moments 100%, but enough that it still affected me. And I will say one last thing. What you talked about, the through line with these films, Chazelle does an incredible job in exploring character. They're great character study films. This film is an independent film masquerading as a large film. It's actually a small character study, and it's brilliantly done.
But if I'm
So
looking
an
at the
A.
through line, that's what I'm seeing. Is
Yeah.
his characters almost have a hard time connecting with other people
Right.
because they have a bigger mission or something else that they're trying to accomplish in life. And the criticism that I've heard about, and you're talking about the emotional not being able to connect, that was, in my opinion, thank God Ryan Gosling didn't go over the top and try to play him like a hero.
Yeah.
He played him true to life.
He did.
And that's what made the Gemini mission a success, is that steadfastness, that steadiness that person had made him so good at what he did that these missions were accomplished.
It's a fantastic,
Yeah.
gutsy approach to
Yeah.
the space program.
The key to Neil Armstrong in this movie, to how Ryan Gosling found his point of connection with capturing the character and playing the character, when in whether he's flying the X-15 or if he's going up in Gemini 8, there's so much turbulence inside the cockpit. It's shaking back and forth uncontrollably to the point where any mere mortal would black out.
Yeah.
And instead of panicking, instead of shouting over the vibrations, Neil Armstrong was, Roger, Houston. You know, he's like,
Yeah.
yes, all systems go. The clock is running. His voice never rises above a steady, controlled, straightforward delivery. And that is because he was the right man for this job.
And that's a hero too. Heroes come in all forms.
And that is why I'm giving this movie, like you, Nikki, I'm giving it an A+.
Yay.
I love this movie. And that is why, moving forward, whenever we talk about First Man on Collider, we are going to call it First Mantz. It is First Mantz. So make sure you hashtag First Mantz. Make sure you comment below First Mantz. Yes, it is shameless, but I'm going with it.
Do you still love La La Land more though?
Oh man,
Good question. Good question.
Live, Nikki. Live. You're asking me.
I
to
love doing this
more.
to you.
Well, listen. Here's the thing. Like with First Man, I mean, the subject matter, it goes back to when I was a little kid, reading all these books about the space missions. I mean, I could have told you the names of all the astronauts on all the missions, the names of the command and lunar modules on the Apollo missions. I was really, really into this stuff, watched all the movies, watched all the documentaries. And, you know, when I was backstage at La La Land at the Hollywood Bowl, I was talking to Damien Chazelle, not about La La Land, which I'd done many, many times already, but I was already talking to him about First Man. I was saying, oh, did you get into the Gemini stuff? And he's like, wow, you really know this. I'm like, yes, I do. And, you know, for a lot of reasons, I love First Man, the movie itself, the subject matter. But look, La La Land is a movie that I found myself in that movie. Like, it wasn't just a movie that spoke to me on a lot of levels because it was this fusion of past and present, because it was about Hollywood, because it was about LA, because it was this chemistry between Ryan and Emma. And of course, I adore Emma Stone to pieces. But I found myself in that movie for very, very personal reasons. And that's why La La Land will always be one of my favorite movies of all time. So
I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it at that. I won't criticize La La Land.
There is my answer. You asked. Okay, this is a really, really special show from Collider Movie Review Talk. We are moving on to The Oath, written and directed by Ike Barinholtz, starring Ike Barinholtz, Tiffany Haddish, John Cho, Nora Dunn. And this takes place in a politically divided America. A man struggles to make it through Thanksgiving dinner without destroying his family, while a deadline looms for every American to sign an oath pledging loyalty to the president. This is fiction, but man, does it kind of hit home. All right, Mr. Rocha.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I did not expect to like this film, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Going to the screening last night, sitting there, and just watching this thing unfold as it unfolded, and the messages that Ike is trying. Listen, Ike Barinholtz, I did not expect this from Ike Barinholtz.
I didn't either.
At all. But talking to other people, I've heard that he does get political in interviews, does get political when having conversations. So that lets you know the man has a political mind. So he approached this thing as It's such a simple thing. It is a guy who overthinks a situation. He's like, we know these people who are triggered by the news all the time, get into these places, comment, blah, blah, blah. But by the same token, he showed both sides of this argument, that there are people on both sides who get triggered by the news and believe what they need to believe, and they're divisive, and you bring them in a Thanksgiving situation, which we've seen many times before in movies. Families always get together and have their issues at Thanksgiving, and it comes out, and you see it progress. And what's great about the film is it unfolds and builds from a simple event, and it keeps building and building and building to where you start to feel the desperation of the characters in the movie, so that what happens at the end is so fun, like just so unexpected and great, that by the end you're just like, wow, this was actually a journey I enjoyed going on. And I got to give a shout out to Ike Barinholtz and Tiffany Haddish. People don't normally play these kinds of roles. The dark comedy within this, John Cho, fantastic as always, just great. And that's Ike Barinholtz's his brother actually, who plays his brother in the film. John, that was surprising. You have shots to all these different ideas of what's going on in our world politically now, reflected back to us. And I do like the way it ends. I like the message that Ike is trying to say at the end of this movie. And I think it's actually a quietly damn important movie to watch at this time right now. What's going on with our country?
Boy, do I agree 1,000-fold, Nikki.
Got to disagree with both of you.
Oh, man! Whoa! Okay.
Okay, but I have a question for you, because I saw this movie with you last night, and 45 minutes into it, you checked your watch and you said to me, do you realize we're only 45 minutes into this movie? Because it felt to me like 2 hours at that point.
Right. Wow.
It takes so long to get going that for the first 45 minutes to an hour, I was like, what is this movie? Okay, when I didn't know a lot going into it. I didn't even know it was a political satire. I thought, I know Ike Barinholtz, Tiffany Haddish. I'm going to laugh. This is going to be a funny movie. And then it wasn't. And for the first 45 minutes to an hour, I'm like, is this a drama? Is this a comedy? Is this a dark comedy? It didn't know what it wanted to be. And I guess in a sense, it was supposed to be a real life portrayal of a family at Thanksgiving, but there were scenes that came and went where I was like, what was the point in that scene? Were they just improvising? Was there a script? It made no sense to me.
Wow.
I will say, as time went on, the payoff was good. But I almost don't even know how to feel about this movie now, because I agree with everything that you're saying. I think I just have political fatigue, and I don't want to go to the movies and watch people arguing about politics. I can get that on Twitter, and I get that on Twitter whether you like it or not. You see it every single day. So maybe it was the subject matter. I applaud Ike Barinholtz. I like him. I have interviewed him, and he did get political in our interview. And but I think also Tiffany Haddish was underutilized. And I think what's happening with her career right now is, I think she came off Girls Trip, and now she's done a couple of movies where she's playing against type. And she's not playing into that wild girl thing. But I didn't feel like she was almost a supporting character, and I wanted to see more of her and her take more of a stand in the movie than I saw her take.
Can I clarify? The 45 minutes thing was more like, look how much they've shoved into 45 minutes.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what you meant.
Yeah, I meant like, because they were shoved in so much into 45 minutes. I'm like, we're only 45 minutes in this movie. This thing's got a little while
that
to
was
go
a compliment.
to blow. Yeah, it was.
And I was taking it a different way, because I was like, I know I can't wait for this thing to end. But I will say,
I wasn't like that at all.
I thought you were on my page with that.
No.
But
I was like, I can't wait to see what happens the next 45 minutes.
But it's one of those movies, because I saw it last night. As it's settling in, I'm warming up to it, and I'm seeing why he made the choices that he did. I think he's a new filmmaker. I think he made some mistakes in some of the choices that he made, but I appreciate what he did.
And Haddish is a great point you bring up. I mean, Scott, I'm sure you'll take this, but I love that she's spreading her wings as an actress.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, first of all, I did love the film. I thought, as a writer, as a director, his feature film debut, Ike Barinholtz, I keep messing up his name. Ike Barinholtz, I thought he was he is a stellar filmmaker, and that he obviously had something to say, and he said it beautifully, and he said it in a way that was provocative, that will stir conversation. You know, asking Americans to sign an oath to the president, it is not out of the realm of plausibility. I mean, it was so close to it felt real. I mean, I had to sort of think that, did we actually have to do that? I mean, is that possible that we could actually get to that point in our current political climate? I mean, without taking sides, just reviewing the movie, I thought, and I agree with you, I'm so burned out with political talk. I mean, I never comment politically on my social media, because everyone else is doing that. I just like to keep it, to movies or Star Trek or the Beatles, and that's it. But I thought this was a terrific film. It was provocative. The performances were great. I like that Tiffany Haddish did not play the girls trip type of role, that she played something a little more reserved and understated, a little more serious. It's a funny role, but it's a little more serious. And I think she has to be careful to not be typecast into those sort of like scene-stealing kind of performances. So I think this early after her breakout performance in Girls Trip, that she's already showing that she's got range and depth. I think she's making a very, very wise choice to do something like that, especially with this kind of movie. But the way that the movie sort of plays out, most of it takes place in one house with this family. So it feels like a play, and it could easily be a play. And the way that the family is torn apart and people go at each other and people lose their marbles and their characters and their true colors are coming through and they're at each other's throats, and it's building and building and building and building, and then after all that, everything's okay, everything changes, and people like take a step back and go, what the hell happened? To that respect, it felt like an episode of The Twilight Zone. There are a bunch of episodes of The Twilight Zone where people are confined and they go at each other because there's a threat on the outside. They don't really know what it is. And when the threat goes away, they sort of be like, oh, okay, well, everything's okay. Actually, no, it's not. A lot was said, a lot was done, and we're never going to be the same as a result. And I thought The Oath was a very, very good movie. And I just hope that moviegoers take their oath and see the film and talk about it and let us know what they think by hashtagging Collider Video and hashtagging Movie Review Talk and tweeting me at Movie Mantz, letting me know, okay, what did you think, John?
Yeah, I give it a B.
Grade,
absolutely a B. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was unexpected joy, so I would say a B.
Okay, Nick, it's okay.
I'm giving it a C.
A C.
I'm giving it a C. I thought I like the fact that it gets you talking, because we called each other after on the way home, and you do talk about it, and then you do get into politics. That said, as a film, just didn't care for it.
Okay, I'm giving it an A- because not only did I like the film, but I think that as a film that, because it's not, it's not a superhero movie, it doesn't have like the big budget of a Hollywood studio to market it, and this is a film where this type of show really gets the word out on a movie like this. And it's important that people support movies like this in theaters. So I know, and I know you liked it, maybe you didn't love it, but I think this is a movie that's really, really important, especially in this day and age, especially with the elections coming up in the beginning of November. I get it, you don't want to go to the movies and think about stuff like this, but in this case, make the exception and see The Oath. All right, moving on to the next film. Now, this is Bad Times at the El Royale. Now, Nikki and John, I know you did not see this movie. I need someone to talk about this movie with.
I think I'm getting kicked out.
Someone is getting kicked out. And John, you know what?
Yeah.
You're going to have to just...
I thought I was going to get kicked out because I didn't like The Oath.
And I am bringing in my partner in crime, the one and only Perry Nemiroff, otherwise known forever as Paranormal Activity.
It's my dream come true, kicking Rocha out of a panel seat.
Yes!
See ya.
Oh, Perry. Okay, so Bad Times at the El Royale is written and directed by Drew Goddard behind Cabin in the Woods. What a cast. You got Jeff Bridges, John Hamm, Dakota Johnson, Chris Hemsworth, to name a few. Nikki, I know you didn't see this movie, but I hope you do.
I didn't see it, but I will say it was one of the best trailers I saw at CinemaCon. It was one of those trailers, that and A Star is Born. I was like, these are the two movies that I have to see. Yeah.
Well, okay, Perry, what'd you think?
I loved this movie, and a lot of people out there know that I usually have a tough time with, I like logic and order and answers, and this is a movie that lays out a whole lot of mystery and doesn't give you those answers, and usually I walk away frustrated from those experiences. In this case, though, I was so caught up in the momentum, the energy, and the spirit, and all these different mysteries that by the time I walked away, I had gotten just enough to feel satisfied, but the answers that I didn't get, I had an absolute blast thinking about guessing. I had seen this with my dad. I took him to the screening.
Your dad.
And
way to go, Mr. Nemiroff.
I had never seen him get so engaged in a conversation after just the back and forth we had about what really happened or what this really meant. it was so nice to get to share that with him. So the fact that I loved it, that he had that kind of experience, this is easily one of my favorite movies of the year.
Okay, you know what? I'm just going to just say that I met Perry's dad, and he is like the greatest guy. He was
He
so
really
lovely,
is.
so charming.
He
Fellow
is.
East Coaster, I love it. But I too love Bad Times at the El Royale. First of all, you're talking about a movie. It's not a sequel. It's not a reboot. It's not a franchise. It's not a superhero movie. It's not a Star Wars movie. It's not, it is a completely original film. And the way the movie is directed, it's a bit long. It's like 2 hours and 20 minutes or so. But you don't feel it because the way the movie is directed, you have a scene plays out, and the next scene will show that scene from a different point of view, changing the scope and the perception of the scene that you just saw, making you think differently about it. And the movie plays like that the whole way through. And as a result, I was engaged and engrossed from start to finish.
The precision in Drew Goddard's directing here is just staggering. It's a movie that doesn't have an ounce of fat on it. Every single moment, every single conversation, and then the way he captures it, it all has value. So this is one of those movies where just every single department is firing on all cylinders, and when it all comes together, it just makes the overall experience that much more powerful. And you mentioned it earlier, the performances, and I'm sorry, I know you guys hate when we smack the desk, but I had to do it. The performance in this movie, I mean, really, it's all the usual suspects that you would expect to be great. Chris Hemsworth is great in that role. John Hamm is great. Jeff Bridges is great. Dakota Johnson is great. Kaylee Spaney, who we just were introduced to in Pacific Rim Uprising. This gives her a lot more to sink her teeth into, but the two that stood out to me, Lewis Pullman, who has one of my favorite scenes of the entire year. It's the pool scene in Strangers Pray at Night, but it's like, that's a movie where that scene was great and the rest of the movie didn't live up to that scene. So to have him be in a movie like this where he is a true standout and the rest of the movie is on that same level is something else. But Cynthia Erivo.
Oh, she was marvelous.
Give it just, I think, a matter of weeks at this point, but between this movie and between Widows, she's going to become a household name, even if you aren't already familiar with all the accolades she has from her work on Broadway. I think she's got, a Tony, a Daytime Emmy, and maybe a Grammy at this point, but between this and Widows, you're going to hear her name a lot.
Yeah, listen, I completely agree on all fronts. I mean, the performances are great. I love that Jeff Bridges' character, it's Father Flynn. And I said, Flynn, when I did that junket with you that day, I said, so Flynn, huh? And he goes, no, it's just a coincidence. Of course, I'm referring to his character in Tron. But Bad Times at the El Royale, is it a movie that's going to open, with $60 million? It's going to start a franchise? No, it's not supposed to. I think that this is a very, very, very good movie, and it just has a different tone to it. It's definitely a stylized movie, and it's definitely a challenging film that keeps you engaged because of the different points of view that you see throughout the course of the movie. And I think at the very least, it's going to gain a very strong cult following. And I think it is an absolutely terrific film. Again, totally original. And what's your letter grade, Perry?
My letter grade for this one is an A-. And I'm very precious about my grades in that A range. But this, like I said, is one of my favorite movies of the year. There's this one, I know you're going to hear about this a lot because it's all everyone's talking about already, is that one tracking shot with Cynthia Erivo singing. It's just such a beautifully orchestrated shot. Hands down, one of my favorite shots of the entire year. And, there's a lot of big things in the theaters right now. So I'm a little disappointed that I think this is kind of going to fly under the radar as far as box office goes. But I think you probably hit the nail on the head with, almost like a cult following that once this is more readily available on streaming services to own on DVD or Blu-ray, I hope it breathes an extra, dose of life into this movie's run because this is a movie clearly that I loved and I want everyone to go see so we can all talk about it.
Well, we're absolutely on the same page, and hopefully everyone who was watching will go see Bad Times at the El Royale. Support the movie in theaters. Don't wait for streaming. Don't wait for Blu-ray. Yeah, you can always do that. But this is a movie that is absolutely worth every penny to see it in theaters because it's so fundamentally different, honestly, from anything else that's out there. And I can't wait to hear what you think, Nikki. So
I've been dying to see it. It's been really tough to get into screenings for that one. I don't know why. I don't know why they didn't have that many.
I know they should have. They absolutely should have because it is a very good movie. It's actually getting good reviews, good ratings so far on Rotten Tomatoes, and as it deserves. deserves to be. I give the movie an A- too. I've really loved it. Perry, thank you so much for sitting in on this
Thank you.
review. All right, John Rocha, you are welcome to come back and join us here on the panel here. Perry is the best.
Yay, Perry.
When I grow up, I want to be Perry. She's just the
We
best.
all do.
You know,
We all do.
she's awesome. All right, John,
and now
welcome
for
back.
a counterpoint. I thought El Royale was terrible. It was the worst film I've ever seen. It's
All
an
right.
F.
He did not see the
I did not
movie,
see the
ladies and
movie, no.
gentlemen. All right, well, let's move on. You know, Netflix is, all the streaming services, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, have really changed the game because there is so much content on there. And I feel like, I've said this before on the show and elsewhere, like when shows drop on Netflix, whether it's like Maniac or Stranger Things or Glow or Ozark, when they drop on the streaming channels like Handmaid's Tale, everyone knows about them. But the movies, not so much. The movies get lost. And there's some good stuff there, really, really good stuff that's worth seeing, hiding in plain sight. And this week's streaming pick is on Netflix. It is called Private Life. It is written and directed by Tamara Jenkins, who directed 10 years ago, or 11 years ago, came out in 2007, a movie called The Savages, which was terrific. Philip Seymour Hoffman and Laura Linney. The cast in this movie is Kathryn Hahn, Paul Giamatti, Molly Shannon, and they play a husband and wife, Paul Giamatti and Kathryn Hahn, not Molly Shannon, husband and wife who try and try and try and try to get pregnant, but it puts their marriage on the brink of collapse. Wow. Okay, Nikki, Private Life, what'd you think?
Really liked it. Thought it was really well done, very realistically done. I thought the performances were great. The dynamic between the two of them as a married couple, completely believable.
Yeah.
And I think what I liked about it was, look, I've never dealt with those issues in my real life, but I can imagine it starts out in one place where it's like, okay, we're not going to adopt, we're not going to do this, we're only going to go this far. And you follow their journey and you see how desperate they get and the lengths that they'll go to. And then when the family members are involved and they haven't seen step A, B, C, D, E, they just go from A to E, they go, wait, what? You're doing what? It's just, it really is just it felt very real, very organic. And I know you were watching it last night and sort of not really sure how you felt about it in the first few minutes, which so I'm curious to hear your take. But I mean, it felt a little bit long to me. I think I could have shaved 5 or 10 minutes off the film, and it wouldn't have lost the impact. But overall, very watchable. And I can imagine for people in this situation, they will watch this film. They will feel like they can identify with it. They have something to sort of watch and go, oh, somebody gets it. Somebody understands.
Yeah. Okay, John.
Well, it's fantastic to have another film that we talk about on this show depicting real life situation. We seem to be doing that throughout this whole show here with Beautiful Boy, with The Oath, with First Man, even, and here in this situation.
And family dynamics.
The family dynamics. Yeah. So for all the reasons
point.
you didn't like The Oath, which are I could have used the exact same argument that you give for this film, is for The Oath. Could have totally applied for The Oath, but initially, when I texted Nikki at the beginning of the movie, first 15, 20 minutes, I'm like, I don't think this one's for me.
Why are you texting me watching a movie? Just watch the freaking movie.
I told him to stop texting me.
She did not. So I was like, because I was just like, well, what is, and then as it went along, because I fell into the trap of like, I don't give a crap about what these upwardly mobile white people deal with babies. I'm sorry, you can't have a child, blah, blah, blah. But then it got to the bones of what's going on here, and you start to see their relationship, develop and bloom a little bit as Sadie comes into their life. And what had been a bitter relationship, or sliding into bitterness and possible divorce because of this idea of having this child, now gets like a new life with Sadie coming in, and it's in essence reborn. And what I enjoyed about the film overall, though, is the performances of Paul Giamatti and Kathryn Hahn, especially Kathryn Hahn, who I've seen do so many comedy things, so many things. She's just, like the role that Molly Shannon plays, Kathryn Hahn can play in her sleep. In a coma, she could play that role. So I like that she got to play this role. You saw some great levels to her, some great new layers that you might not have seen in other performances or other films. And so it was so much fun to go with her on this journey. And Giamatti unlocked another version of this character that he's played before.
Sideways.
The sideways, the overwhelmed guy trying to do the right thing in these situations, but still with a little bit of bite, a little bit of hardness to him. And I liked their journey through this whole film. And it sucked me back in after the first half an hour. And then I thoroughly enjoyed the last hour and a half as I was watching the movie. Yeah, could they have cut 10 minutes? Sure, but I don't think it would have mattered to me either way. My reception to the film would have stayed the same. I enjoyed the movie.
Okay, you know what's interesting is I saw the film at Sundance. It was one of the opening night movies back in January. And from the version I saw at Sundance, the movie that's playing now on Netflix, they actually did cut 10
Oh, they did.
minutes
Oh, wow.
from
Interesting.
the movie. So, but I do agree. It's still
10 more?
It's still a bit long.
Yeah.
It is still a bit long. I mean, that's really my only criticism for the film because it is such a raw, honest, intimate movie. You know, it is an honest film. I really believed that this couple really wanted to have a child, whether they were going to go through fertility issues or adopt. And it's very enlightening and informative on the fertility side. But the performances are great. And Kathryn Hahn, who's just always been one of those actresses she's always great. She's so great that she's almost expected to be great,
right.
Where it's, you know, you don't really appreciate it as much, but she was terrific in Revolutionary Road, and she was magnificent in a very little scene gem of a movie called Afternoon Delight, which was also a Sundance movie from a few years ago. But Kathryn Hahn, I think she's one of the best actresses working today. Of course, a lot of people know her as the scene stealer in Bad Moms and Bad Moms Christmas. Right. But you really root for this couple. Again, it's just so genuine. It's a genuine film. The performances, the dialogue, the screenplay, Tamara Jenkins' screenplay is terrific. And it is actually a great movie to see on Netflix. This is what the streaming service is all about, that you can have a beautiful film like this, and it's right there at your fingertips. What's your letter grade, Nikki?
B+ on this one.
B+?
Yeah.
John?
Yeah, I have to agree with Nikki. B+ on this one.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm giving it an A-, and the demerit is only because it is a bit long.
Yeah.
Okay, now moving on to Blu-ray. Now, this is a film that is absolutely one of the greatest movies ever made of all time. Celebrating its 50th anniversary. We got the soundtrack, the score going on in the background here. And this is a film that I've seen like more than 50 times.
What?
Yes. 50 times. Every time I see this movie, I get something new about it, especially when I saw it over the summer in IMAX, which was a first to see this movie in IMAX, and now also a first. It is being released in the end of October on 4K. 4K for 2001: A Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick's landmark masterpiece, one of the greatest movies ever made, not just one of the greatest sci-fi movies, one of the greatest movies ever made. What's this movie about? Well, you know, I saw... Wait, hang on. You know, I remember years ago in like TV Guide, I was flipping through, and the plot line for 2001: A Space Odyssey is a computer kills the passengers on a spaceship. I'm like, really? That's the plot? No, the plot, the story of 2001: A Space Odyssey, the ambitious, sweeping scope of the story, which is about the evolution of human consciousness over a 4 million year period. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of 2001: A Space Odyssey, when you watch this movie on 4K, you got to check out The Cinephiles. The Cinephiles, hosted by John Rocha and Steve Morris, where they give a very compelling, informative, and fascinating deep dive into 2001: A Space Odyssey that is so deep, it took over a couple of episodes. And their special guest on this very special episode of The Cinephiles, talking about 2001: A Space Odyssey,
Scott Mantz.
This guy,
That's right.
the first Mantz himself, talking about 2001: A Space Odyssey. There's so much to discuss with this movie, but in the end, it is, well, Nikki, what do you think of 2001: A Space Odyssey?
I think the story behind the making of the movie is more interesting than the movie itself,
Okay,
actually.
interesting.
Okay.
It's
All
one
right.
of those movies, and the fact that the first time he showed this movie, people were walking out, like a fifth of the audience walked out.
Yeah.
People didn't get it. I mean, those are his films. They're not for everybody. They're not for everybody's taste. My first, film of his I ever saw was A Clockwork Orange, and I saw it when I was way too young, and it scarred me for life.
Yeah, I can see
And
why.
so I had an aversion to his movies for a long time. Look, like I said, I love the fact that, he knew as much about NASA as probably anybody in researching this film. And the fact that NASA has, I'm sure you know the answer to this, quoted him and talked to him and wrote articles about him because he dove so deeply into the story. I find that more compelling than watching it. I will say, I've never seen it on the big screen, which I think would be a completely different experience.
It will
to
be.
see it in IMAX and be completely immersed, because it's one of those stories that unfold. It's so long, and there's so many scenes where seemingly nothing happens. It's very easy to have your attention pulled away if you're watching it at home. So I would like to see it in IMAX.
John.
Yeah, absolutely love this movie. I'm just behind Scott, maybe seen it 30 times. I've owned it in every version there is.
Me too.
From
Yeah,
VHS to DVD to Blu-ray to now 4K. I put in my pre-order.
Yep.
October 30th, it's coming.
That's
it was
right.
originally October 22nd, and they moved it to October. I was going to get it for my birthday, but now it's going to be a week after my birthday. So October 30th, I'm looking forward to it. I didn't get a chance to see it in 4K in the theaters, but one of the reasons I bought a 4K television was when I found out they were releasing this in 4K. I wanted to watch it in 4K at my house, and so I'm looking forward to it. It's a thoroughly awesome film. Scott, you were fantastic on that show with us on the Cinephiles. It is 2 episodes, about an hour and 45 minutes each episode. We do a massive deep dive. Scott showed up with like 30 pages written in notebook to talk about all the notes about the making of this movie. So, but the thing that's incredible about the film is it still holds up. It's 2018, and you can see the influences in First Man.
Absolutely.
The quiet scenes when they first walk on, and everything just goes silent. Stanley does that throughout the movie. You have to come to Stanley. Stanley ain't going to come to you. You got to come to Stanley to understand what he's talking about. And this film is built like that. If you are a cinephile in any way, shape, or form, you will find something to enjoy in this movie and to marvel at.
The thing about drawing Stanley Kubrick to First Man, when you get to the point in First Man where they show Stanley Kubrick actually filming the moon landing, I thought that was extraordinary. Okay, that didn't happen. But you're right. First of all, I completely agree that the making of 2001: A Space Odyssey is a massive story unto itself. In fact, there's a book out right now called Space Odyssey, which is about that, and it's a very compelling read. If you love Kubrick, if you love 2001, or even if you love making movies, the process of making movies back in the 60s. But 2001: A Space Odyssey is full of so many ideas. It looks like it could have been shot today. It holds up exceptionally well to the point where it was ahead of its time when it was released in April of 1968. It is still ahead of its time today. The only thing that dates the movie is the title. Otherwise, it is still way, way ahead of its time. The use of the classic musical scores, the long shots, it is so absorbing. Just, again, the scope of the story, that humanity has to reach certain points before they are deemed worthy by outside intelligence of advancing to the next stage of their evolution. There's nothing like 2001: A Space Odyssey, and there never will be. And there will never be another show like this episode of Movie Review Talk. It is the Citizen Kane of Movie Review Talk episodes, especially with that big fat assist from Perry Nemiroff. Paranormal Activity. Perry's the best. Okay, now where can people find you, Nikki?
At Fandango, at Nikki Novak.
Okay, John?
Simple. You can find me at The Rocha Says on Twitter and on Instagram. All the stuff I do there, I talk about ad nauseum.
You can find me at Movie Mantz on Twitter, at Movie Mantz on Instagram. Make sure you shoot me a tweet at Movie Mantz, tag Collider Video, hashtag Movie Review Talk. Let us know the movies. Let us know what you thought of the movies we talked about today. We really want to know. And again, please share the video of the show. Please share the podcast version of the show. It's Podcast 1. And make sure you comment and review the podcast so we can actually get Movie Review Talk moving up the ladder of the rankings on iTunes. That would be really, really swell, ladies and gentlemen, and I'd really appreciate it. So next week on Movie Review Talk, he's back. He's back. Michael Myers. He's back. He is back. The Shatner mask is still looking great on Michael Myers in this brand new Halloween on the 40th anniversary of the original film. We'll take a look at that. Until then, here's looking at you, kid.
Hey everybody, Mark Ellis here. Thanks for watching this episode. You want to watch more? Then click up here. Or you can click right here for more great content from Collider. If you haven't subscribed to Collider Video, do so right now and share this vid with your friends. Thanks for watching.